I was like, I mean, huh? Like, I literally read that book. I read it. I was like so shook. I was so shook.
Hello?
Hey guys, welcome back to my channel. So today I thought I would do a video about how I revised for my English A-level. As you guys know, I achieved an A star in my English Literature A-level. I'm very proud of it. I'm very pleased with my result. And also I'm going to study English at Nottingham, which is one of the top courses in the country for English Literature. So I feel like I'm well educated enough, I think, to give you advice on this topic. I'm splitting this video up into 3 sections: general, how I revised, and essay writing, and unseen extract. So if you want a certain part of the video, then just skip ahead. I'll leave the timings of each bit in the down bar. So you can skip ahead if you want to see a certain part of the video and you don't care about how I revised, but how I wrote essays is more important to you, whatever. So just skip ahead, it's fine, won't be offended. So if you carried on watching, then you want to know about my general tips for revising English A-level. My first tip is to make a plan of everything you want to revise for English Literature. So my final exams were comparative, so I had 2 final exams. In the first exam I had to compare 2 books from the Gothic genre. And in that first exam as well, I also had to do an unseen extract, and then in my other exam I had to compare 2 books from pre-1900s, so like before the 1900s, and then I had to do a bit on the Tempest. So basically I had about 5 books that I had to study for my final exams. So I split my revision periods into about 3 weeks. First week I'd study 1 book, second week I'd study the second, and third I'd compare the 2. And then do it the same for the other 2 books and sort of go between it like that. The reason I did that is because each text in its own right is so complex, and you want to give yourself time to figure the text out and create new ideas and really delve into one text before you start sort of looking at the other one and trying to compare it. If you have a really deep understanding of both texts, then it's a lot easier to compare them, so you're making your life a lot easier. You guys are going to hate me for saying this. Read your text 4 or 5 times. The reason for this is that you will never truly grasp a book and know it as well as you have unless you just sit down and read it and take in the text. So realistically you want to read it once before you study it, once whilst you're studying it, once just after, and then once whilst you're revising, and then any times after that is just a bonus. For my A-level, I read all of my texts about 4 times apart from Maud, because Maud is like it's like an extended long poem. It's not really like a book of sorts. So I felt like it wouldn't have been as productive to reread it, so instead I just kept going through it and taking quotes out and re-annotating it, because rereading it for me just wasn't helpful. But it's only in that instance. If it's like a normal book, then read it. My third general tip is to just read around your text. Now, what I mean by that is there are so many resources online. You've literally got you've got BBC Bitesize, York Notes, EMC, Spark Notes, was it like Mazolit? Like, you've got so many things online. Obviously you've got Google. The reason for reading around is so that you can come up with your own original ideas. Examiners are constantly looking for people to think just outside of the box and think, oh, someone who's taking a different angle on the situation and spinning it into their own opinion and like bringing in lots of different interpretations and stuff. So by reading around it is a great way of doing that. So another thing, class discussion is key. It is key. I would always be that annoying kid in class who would put their hand up like at every question, and I know that's so annoying and I can appreciate that, but honestly, in my opinion, it's the best way to learn in English, because the whole thing is just debates and discussion and arguing your point against, you know, other people and yourself, and that's the whole thing of it. So by discussing it in class, it helps you formulate an idea in your head. Yeah, it just makes it more interesting, you know. Have an opinion and project it. If you're shy, but you know, at least try every now and then to put your hand up. You might surprise yourself. When you're writing an essay, don't make your language too ornate. Don't use big words you don't know the meaning of, because in all honesty it can just make you look like an idiot. You know, if you know the meaning of the word and it instantly comes to your head when you think of the idea, then definitely use it. If you don't know the word, it can work against you, and then, you know, it can end up you losing a mark or 2 over just a word, because it takes down the sophistication of your argument. which is actually a band in what you're, you know, tested on. English is so complex and it's very easy to get confused with the meaning of words. Like, every word has such a specific meaning that if you don't use it in the correct context, it can just sound a bit weird and out of place, and, you know, and it can undermine the point of your argument. So the next section, how I revise. Now this is the real question, because when I started my A-levels, the real thing was, we were all saying, is just like, but how do you actually revise English literature? You can't revise it. Not true. Hun, there are ways. There are ways. I think the first main thing that I did throughout the whole time I revised English Lit is I would make essay plans, and then I would learn the essay plans. How dull. I would just learn my essay plans. Another thing I'd always do is actually I'd always just write my essays, and I know that sounds so dull and it's literally not what you want to hear, but it's actually true. My English teacher once said to us all that if you're not writing, then you're not revising in English, and it's true. It's like, if you're not, because the whole thing with English is writing and, you know, learning how to structure your essays and, you know, develop a more sophisticated argument. The only way you're going to do that is if you practice writing your essays. So another thing I did was I used to get my text and I used to re-annotate the whole thing. So for example, this is one of the texts that I studied. It's A Doll's House by Henrik Ibsen. Yeah, so inside I've got all my annotations, all the fun stuff, all the post-it notes, literally the whole annotated thing. And basically I would just read the text again and re-annotate it as a way of revising. So once I've re-annotated it, I'll go through it again, and then I'll make like a quote sort of bank type thing. I say bank because it's not really a bank. I'd literally like write the quote and then write the explanation on the other side. So yeah, as you can see, like on one side there's explanation and on the other side there's a quote, and I would learn the quote and the matching explanation interchangeably. So if you said the explanation, I could tell you the quote, etc, etc. Another really random tip that I used to use to revise is I'd put post-it notes all over the house, all over my room. That wardrobe there was absolutely covered in Gothic critical nuggets up until about like 3 months ago. That wall was A Doll's House and Maud, and that wall was The Tempest, and I'm being straight up, the whole thing was covered in critical quotes, and that is how I learnt my quotes. That is how I knew them so well, because I literally lived with it. I had to live with it. Every time I'd look around my room, they'd be there. I'd have to read it. I wouldn't have a choice. My final tip for like actually revising is to focus on themes, characters and comparison. So for example, The Tempest is not a comparative text, so I focused on revising the themes, for example forgiveness, and a character, Prospero, and then I'd make a spider diagram and develop that to use each of the assessment objectives. So now we're on to the third fun bit of the video, essay writing. My first tip with essay writing is to always make a plan. As soon as you get in there, make a plan so you know exactly how you're going to structure your answer. At the top you want to put the question you were doing, and then for the rest of it you want to fill it in with quotes and key context and key critical interpretations. You have 15 minutes to do it, so it's enough time to fully stretch out, you know, fully plan your answer so you know exactly where you're going. This is really good because it also takes away a little bit from the stress of the main bulk of the exam. Obviously you've got this first 15 minutes of thinking up your ideas, and then you've got the rest of the exam to just write it. So in my eyes it made it easier. My second tip is to always evaluate and to not explain your quotes. So what I mean by that is they don't want to know how the quote happened. They don't want to know, oh, so, you know, Mina was chatting to Lucy and then all of a sudden Harker said this. Like, no, they don't want to know that. They want to know why he said it, what's important, what's the relevance to the text, like how does it relate to the context of the text, you know, what do Marxists think of this, what do feminists think of this. They want to know the wider, the broader perspective of the quote. They don't want to know how it came to happen. Another thing is keep using keywords in the question, keep going back to the question. So for example, if your question was the Gothic always punishes sinners for their transgressions, you've got sinners, transgressions, punishes. You want to focus on those words and keep using it throughout the essay, keep interweaving it. Everything you say has to answer the question or there's no point writing it. Final thing is how I structured it. In the way I personally did it, your way might be different. Is I would always write an introduction, and in that introduction I'd always include some AO5 and AO3 interchangeably depending on the question. And then I'd have 3 points that would all contrast and compare to each other. They wouldn't be all arguing for the same thing. So I'd always do sort of 1 for, 1 for against, and then 1 obscure point of view. And then I do a conclusion where the final line is something completely different to everything I've said and sort of throws everything out the water. Like, I always used to call it like a mic drop moment. So you literally, like, your whole essay would be this whole, like, you know, it starts to come to a point and then your conclusion is literally saying, oh, but what if it's this? Or it's like, oh, what if transgression is genderless? I don't know, it's something like that. Like, you say something like showy-offy to show that you're clever, basically. And then the final part of my video, and I know I'm going on now, is unseen extracts. First thing is ask yourself who, what, where and why, and that is the main things that should lead your essay. That is the main part of your critical interpretation. You want to constantly be explaining the story and constantly showing that you have an idea of what's actually going on in the text you've been given, whilst showing that you appreciate the way the writer has written it and how it fits in with your genre, basically. We had to read cool Gothic texts all the way to modern day, or at least read extracts of them and sort of gain an idea of what, you know, Gothic is about fundamentally and also how it changes over time. That's the best way to gain knowledge on your genre, and then to also mention other texts in your critical appreciation to show that you have a wider understanding. Fun fact, one of the texts I actually read, which is Carmilla by Sheridan Le Fanu, literally up there, was my unseen extract in my exam. I was like, like, I literally read that book, I read it as a way of, you know, linking to it, and I remember I was reading it, I thought this would all link really well to that text that I studied, and I was like, at the bottom, and I was like, this is the text I studied. I was like so shook. I was so shook. And finally, make a comment on how the writer achieves the intended effect through the literary devices that you produce. So if you say, you know, they used a metaphor to achieve whatever, then you've got to say he does that artfully, he does it skillfully, he does it badly, he does it well, whatever. You want to make a comment on it. You don't want to just say that is what he does. You want to say how he does it. So I think that is about everything. I've bled myself dry. This is literally how I studied English literature at A-level. It's how I got an A-star. So yeah guys, I hope that was helpful. That is about all my tips for how I studied English literature. You know, I think the main thing is to just keep working hard and keep reading, keep writing, and question everything. That's the main thing. Question everything and you'll be fine. I hope you enjoyed it. Give me a like if you did. If you want to see any other videos about how I achieved an A in my psychology or an A in my drama and theatre studies, then I'll be very happy to do videos on that if you guys want to see more of that. But other than that, I hope you guys have a lovely day. Subscribe if you haven't already, and I will see you in the next one. Bye!